Cheers, brother.
Cheers to you.
So, speaking of Allison transmissions, Dan.
Yeah.
Did you know the next generation Ram is going to come with a Cummins and an Allison transmission paired together?
That's infuriating because I have a 3-speed 727 in my old Cummins.
Okay.
I mean, it's bulletproof, but
Yeah.
I would like the shifting ability of an Allison.
Oh. Are you going to swap one in?
I'm going to find like a schoolyard, like a graveyard for school buses and pull one out of one of those because they used to have the 5.9 in front.
You basically drive a school bus just without the ability
Yeah,
to
and then
carry.
all I have to do is adjust the length of the drive shaft. I'll get one probably custom made, and then, yeah.
Totally.
What about you?
I'm just going to wait for that next generation to come out and probably trade up. I'm really excited.
Respectable.
I thought about throwing an Allison in mine, but Val just bought a Ram Rebel.
That he did. Congratulations, Val.
The interior
Here's
of
to you,
that
buddy.
thing is immaculate.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
I think
God.
I think I want to wait just
That
to
thing
have
is
that.
that thing
Ram.
is a Dodge Cadillac. That's what it is.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
12-inch screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a Tesla with a Hemi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, speaking of really manly stuff,
Yeah.
we're bringing on our first guest today.
Yep.
Super manly guest.
Super manly. You guys makes us both look not.
I've never met him before,
Yeah, he's.
but I
He's
think
a
I
cool
want
guy.
to.
I
I think
know
I
him
want
a
to
little.
marry him. So let's welcome my fiance, Christina Young. Everybody,
Pretty sure about
can you
very
guys clap,
manly.
please? Yeah, we have a studio audience
We
today.
do.
Thank you. Hi, Christina.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good.
Howdy.
So, Christina is a 911 dispatcher for the Sheriff's Department.
Mm-hmm.
And I think today that would be a great topic to talk about since we are in the midst of,
Some fuckery.
to put it lightly, we've
Yep.
got a handful of people that want to defund the police. So I thought it would be smart to talk with somebody who has direct experience in the police field that could maybe touch on what the effects of defunding the police might mean for us.
I think we should also probably discuss what defunding actually means, the very definition of it, because I feel like it doesn't mean what a lot of people understand it to be.
Take it away,
Oh, well, put me on the spot then.
educated man.
I would definitely not say I'm educated, but I'm not dumb. Defunding is interesting because it has more to do with reallocation than it does with actual funding. So the funding's still there. It probably just gets sent to other spots. If they actually defund, if they cut money from the budget, then all the things that are nice about it go first. They're still going to make their money. So, as a staunch libertarian, you guys, a lot of what the police do outside of the niceties of protecting us as citizens is fining us for our taillights being out and shit like that. So if you want all that without anything good in it for you, then by all means defund the police. But they're still kind of doing a little bit of racketeering and extortion for the whole ticket and pulling you over and registering your vehicle and firearms and other things that don't need to be registered, besides voters, which are important to register, but I digress. What do you feel about it?
So what you're saying is the police wouldn't go away if they are defunded, so as people are crying
they're
for
just
it,
going
right?
to be the police you don't like instead of the police that you call to save your ass.
Okay. Can you touch on...
So, disclaimer, this is just my experience from my department. I don't know all the rest of departments around the country, how they run their department. But from my department, we've already seen a little bit of that happening. For instance, as an example, we had a mother call in and asked for a sergeant or someone to talk to her son because her son was like, screw the police, they suck. So the sergeant went and spoke to this kid and was like, do you feel like your community is safe? And he's like, yeah. And he said, how many deputies do you think you have in a 12-period shift? He was like, I don't know, like 15, 20. He has 3.
Mm-hmm.
3 city deputies that are contracted through that city for the safety of that particular city. Now, after this has happened and through the defunding, from my understanding, is between certain hours, I think it was like from 2 to 6, they didn't want to pay for a 3rd deputy, so now they only have 2 in that part of the city for those hours. Now, normally maybe things aren't as, happening as much during those hours. However, let's say some big crime is happening, there's a domestic going on, one deputy's going to go, the other's going to go to back him. Now what happens if another domestic's happening in your city?
Right.
Right? So if you're defunding those policemen or those sheriffs so they're unable to have as many in your city, I think it's a hinder to you. for your safety.
Well, that's what I was saying. It's only going to be the cops you don't like. When you call the cops to save your ass, they may or may not even be there. They might not be able to respond.
Agreed.
Right.
And I think that is extremely dangerous, and I don't think people are understanding how that'll affect their safety. You know, if they're defunding certain programs, those programs are in place for a reason.
Right.
You know, if you look at, and I don't have the statistics handy, but I've seen that there's definitely been a spike in violent crimes in a lot of these cities.
Minneapolis.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the one I saw recently. It was like skyrocketed by like what,
They're-
500% or something.
No, it was a 50% increase
Oh,
in the
okay.
first day.
Okay.
Now,
Wow.
I don't know what the statistics are like after that, but I can tell you with all certainty it's not good. So,
Yeah. So another thing that you kind of consider, and this is kind of based on if they actually fully defunded the police and got rid of them, right? But then, so if that ever did happen, what would probably happen is eventually police would become privatized, right?
right.
The way that I've seen it in other podcasts and other places where they talk about this kind of topic, they've talked about how shush.
We have a dog present, guys.
Should just derail my train of thought. Anyway.
The way you've seen it approached in our
Yeah.
podcast.
So if you privatize the police, you have all these private entities, right? And the funding is coming from the people themselves. It's not coming out of your
Right,
tax dollars,
it's
right?
conflicting interests.
Well, right. So all the rich people are going to pay more for higher security, more protection.
Sure, and penalties of their own.
Right. So all the resources
will
are
be
going to be in
created
like
and enforced.
notoriously safe areas.
Right.
Whereas the people who can't afford the top-notch private police are going to get even crappier protection.
Well, the
and
worst
civil.
thing is when you see these communities that don't have a very strong police presence in the first place, they're the ones telling you, we want cops out of our neighborhood.
Yep.
When the cops are responding there regularly. Compton, Harlem, Watts, Inglewood, all these places where you find bullet holes in the doors, you find hypodermic needles on the ground. There's a lot of homelessness in these communities. It's rough to watch those communities say they want the police out of their neighborhood, when ultimately, a lot of the time, despite what you guys, our listeners, might feel, might think, regardless of your experiences, most cops are not assholes. They really do want to help. You might have had one that pulled you over and you thought they gave you an unfair ticket or whatever, but I can tell you with all certainty, I have seen police save lives. So I'll leave it at that.
Very true. And at the end of the day, the people with lower funding are probably going to cry for some regulation of funds at that point, and we're going to just come full circle and be right back where we are now.
I think my biggest issue is whenever people say there ought to be a law, you know?
Yeah. Right.
Whenever they don't like something, well, there ought to be a law.
Yeah.
Kills me. It kills me.
Now, and a lot of people have good points. I think maybe some change needs to happen with maybe the way that police are trained, only in a sense of maybe holding each other accountable a little bit more, because I think that's the few bad eggs that make everybody look bad to a certain audience. Maybe within the ranks they can help stop these few bad eggs from
Right.
acting the way they act
Right.
and giving a better name to police as a whole.
Yeah, I have a buddy who is a police officer for a local department, and he has to qualify with his pistol twice a month. They train them very well at this department, and they don't really tolerate, how would I put it? I guess complacency, And I think that it's really important to hold your peers to that standard as well, like you're saying. And I feel like, if anything, our tax dollars aren't necessarily allocated particularly well in any other facet. If we took those tax dollars and redirected them towards funding the police more so they could have better training, maybe,
Right.
that might change the public opinion when they encounter police officers and whatnot.
Well, I think a lot of it is because people don't necessarily deal with police or sheriffs firsthand a lot, right? Your community is really safe, so you don't actually see what happens behind closed doors, I would say, right?
Yeah.
So we have a very safe community, but there's a lot going on that people don't know about.
Absolutely.
And these sheriffs and police officers are stopping that, which is why you think you have 20 deputies or 20 police officers when you only have 3.
Right.
Right.
I think that's huge. And
They're
a
just
lot of people
super
have
good.
no idea. I mean, I didn't have any idea what dispatchers did or what police and sheriffs did. I mean, you have a general idea, but when you're involved, I have found new respect for both dispatchers and police and sheriff.
Yeah.
Understandable.
And on a point that he made about most police officers are good people, nice guys who genuinely care about the safety of their community and the well-being of others. How many of the deputies that you work with directly are buttholes? What 0%?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, given I've only been a dispatcher for about a year, so I don't know as much as my fellow coworkers who have been doing it for many years.
Sure, but in your line of work, you see a lot of things on the daily.
Yeah, you run into
Well, and a lot
of
of people
in
don't
situations.
realize how much they actually deal with every day. Their day-to-day business, they don't realize that the deputies are encountering the same people every single day and having to respond to the calls for the same people every single day. So, and they're great. And a lot of people don't realize what kind of deputies they have out, right? They're saying, well, we need more deputies, or we need deputies that can deal with more mental health issues. In my department, we have that. We have a deputy that rides with, like, a social worker person, rides in their car with them, and they respond to those mental health issue cases.
So then, is it safe to assume that your department's budget has not been cut or defunded in any way?
It has, with those that the deputies, they're pulling them out of the cities. So it just depends on who pays for what, right? So with our county, there are certain cities that pay for us to be their police for their city.
Right.
So those cities make those choices.
Okay.
Because the city is paying for us to be there.
Right, and I'm sure they probably understand what they're signing up for before they.
So it just kind of
contract the
depends,
services.
and it's just, to me, it's really sad because, like I said, the general public doesn't realize, and I get that, but being in it, they deal with a lot more than we think on a daily basis. I mean, in my department, again, don't know others' departments, but our department, anytime there is a code blue, so someone who's not breathing and unconscious, our deputy responds also, because they could beat the emergency medical services there first, right? There's a lot of times where they beat them and they start CPR on that person before the ambulance arrives. So a deputy could very well save your life, so I think, and people probably don't know that. And I think those things are really important to know, that they do a lot more than you think they do. They don't want to give you tickets. They don't want to pull you over for a taillight.
Right.
But, everyone has their job and they have to do their job.
Yeah, and recently I had the privilege of doing a sit-along with you at your job, and most of the calls that you guys were taking were for really ridiculous things, and people kind of demanding that resources be sent out for things that don't need to be used for.
Can you give me an example?
Yes, I can. So listening in on, actually it was our supervisor who took the call, and I was kind of listening here and there, talking to Christina and listening. Well, then I just hear the supervisor go, "Well, ma'am, an emoji can't physically hurt you." That got my ears perked.
Oh my God.
So I'm listening to the call. She finishes the call out and she hangs up. I'm like, "So what was that?" And she goes, "The lady called and reported that a random phone number sent her a devil emoji, and she knows what devil emojis mean, and that scares her." And so things, most of the calls were things like that. Things like, "Okay, what do you want me to do about it?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
people,
absurd.
I don't know. I think people really take our police forces for granted.
Absolutely, it's right at their beck and call.
There was another call where a lady called in. She wanted to report that somebody had broken into her car. Now, this was on Thanksgiving. And so he said, "Okay, we will send a deputy out to you ASAP to, get a report filed." And the lady was like, "Well, I don't want to deal with a deputy right now. I'm late for a Thanksgiving party.
Right.
So can we just do this later?" And the lady was like, "Well, no, I want to get the wheels turning on this." And he was like, "Well, ma'am, if you don't want to speak to a deputy right now, then the wheels won't get turning until you want to speak to a deputy."
The fireplace was kind of
loud.
No, not loud. It started over. It started playing ads in the background or whatever. I was listening the whole time.
Gotta get your credits. Fire needs credits too.
That's
But
right.
also, with that being said, if people feel like their lives are being threatened, absolutely call us. We
Sure,
want to
of
be
course.
there
You don't
to
wanna
protect
deter
the
people
public.
from
That's
feeling-
what we're for. But it is frustrating when our services get allocated in a way that I feel probably shouldn't. And that's hard. That's really frustrating. So
Not only is it inefficient, it's wasteful.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is hard.
Yeah, and without dropping names, I can remember one story she told me about a certain celebrity who publicly spoke to, defund the police, and within a week called and reported that one of her watches was stolen from her house and wanted deputies there immediately. But she wanted
great irony.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I actually have a friend in that same vein that you were talking about, Christina, who actually told me he arrested the same suspect twice in one day.
That's normal.
Because in California now you get out of jail like that.
Happens, yeah.
Arrested the same suspect twice in a day for doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Happens a lot. It's really unfortunate.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And if he's one officer who's told me that story, I know it's happened to countless officers. I just
I'm telling you, they do a lot, and I think a lot of people don't know what they go through. So, for instance, as a dispatcher in training, when I was on training, you have to go on ride-alongs with all the parts of our county. Great.
Right.
So I'm sitting in their debrief, and the sergeant was going over the incident that happened in the drive-thru. I think it was at a Wendy's or something, where there was a taser incident.
The Jack in the Box.
Yeah, whatever that incident
yeah.
was. They went through like clip by clip and was like, okay, what could we do differently? What kind of taser did he have? Should he know what kind of what? So they broke it down and talked to all the deputies about it. So if people are thinking, well, they're not doing, they're training their deputies. They do debriefs where they train their deputies. Like, again, my department, but I feel like our guys are doing a great job. They're really working hard and trying to, learn from mistakes that other deputies or other police officers had made and learn from them and work, to serve the public.
I think it's monumentally important to learn from the mistakes
Absolutely.
of others.
And they, for the most part, all of these deputies, are well-rounded, good-hearted people.
Right.
And the amount of the interview process to get hired is intense. The one I went through took almost a year. And they interviewed my neighbors who I've never even met before. I had detectives knocking on my neighbors' doors, and you have to go through a psych evaluation and a lie detector test, and all of these, have you ever done anything in your entire life? I had to put down that I stole a sticker when I was 6 from a friend, kind of thing. So they go through a vigorous hiring process.
Yeah.
And then they go through vigorous training, and then they continue to go through training. So
right, it doesn't stop once you're in.
Right, and I think, again, it's just because the public isn't educated on how much actually happens. And that's in any job, right? You expect your food to be exactly on time. Well, they don't realize what's happening in the kitchen.
Right.
They don't know what the process is.
Right.
And that's normal. We're not educated on stuff that we're not professionals in.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to try to be open-minded and see that there's more going on that you just don't know about.
Could I liken it in that regard then to restaurants, in that you, as different departments, similar to different restaurants, have different training, different experience, and different, resources to work with? In other words, some departments like yours might have that training going on continually, while others might not be able to offer that as frequently, or in some cases, hopefully not, but in some cases maybe at all even.
Mm-hmm. And my thing is, maybe instead of defunding, we just change the funding or add funding in different areas.
Right.
More training. Okay, move the funding over to more training. I mean, a lot of deputies I spoke to, that they've had to buy their own vests. They have to buy their own cameras. Like, that's money coming out of their pocket.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, something not everyone knows about, And when I first applied to be a dispatcher, I had no idea how hard it would be and how much these dispatchers deal with. If you know a dispatcher, please thank them. My coworkers are incredible. I mean, I went through a year-long training process. A year. Mm-hmm. And I think when you think about a dispatcher or a 911 operator, you think, okay, they take a call and they transfer it, or no way.
Can attest to that.
I mean,
apparently the day that
Go ahead, no.
Okay. Apparently the day that I went and watched her was like her easiest day, most relaxed day that she's ever had since becoming a dispatcher. And
was it just way too much for you?
Oh, 100. She's got 5 screens in front of her.
Oh my God.
One thing that I never considered is that, when you call 911, you get somebody on the phone, you're thinking you're just talking to that one person, but what you don't know is there's 4 other people in the room listening to the same conversation, and they all have a role to fulfill just for that phone call. One person's gathering information, one person's sending out a message to the deputies if necessary, and they're all communicating with each other while they're talking on the phone, and the multitasking is insane. And she goes, oh, this is the easiest day I've ever had. I can't imagine being there
Well,
on a
and,
tough day.
and the dispatcher that picks up your phone is answering you on your worst day, right?
Yeah.
We're answering your call on your worst day. So
Mhm.
we pick up hundreds of calls from people on their worst day. You know, having to listen to moms say they found their son unconscious or their baby's not breathing or, you know, and
It's rough.
it's hard. And I don't think people realize how much these dispatchers go. I had no idea.
I was gonna say
No
I'd be
idea.
interested to read like a study regarding the mental health of dispatchers potentially after a long period
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky that our departments, you know, we have access to counselors and
Mhm.
things like that. And we definitely rely on each other a lot for calls. And, you know,
Sure.
our supervisors check in on us after we have a hard call. Are you okay? Like, do you need a minute kind of thing?
Mhm.
But we take a call, move on to the next one, you
Mhm.
know, and it's rough. It's rough to listen to that person having a really hard time. And a lot of times we hear, you know, we go through it with you, but then when we hang up, sometimes we don't know what happens, you know, and that's hard to not get
Mhm.
that closure. But, you know, I'd like to think that I've convinced some people from taking their own life
Mm-hmm.
before the deputies arrived, or at least got them to the deputies getting there, you know,
Mhm.
and providing help. And it's rough. You know, my supervisor said, if you haven't cried in a closet, you're not a dispatcher. Because it's rough. And the only reason I say this is because, again, I don't think the public knows how much they do or how different that job is, right? So
Right.
we're taking 911 calls, we're dispatching in my department. Some departments only dispatch police, others departments only dispatch fire or ambulance or all of them. So my department, we dispatch fire, medics, and police.
Mhm.
So we all kind of work as a team, which is really, especially like when we have big fires, police are going for evacuations and traffic control and the fire's there, and then the medics are there to help with any injuries. So
Mhm.
we're all kind of working as a team in the room. But like little things, right? So anytime you pocket dial 911 or your Apple Watch calls 911 or you push your side button too many times, it calls 911. If it makes it to our center, right? If you call 911 and you hang up, or there's an open line and it's in your pocket, we listen to what's going on, right? We try to say, you know, hello, so you can hear us. Sometimes I have some just push buttons to kind of see if you'll hear the buttons.
Mhm.
Then we call you back. If you don't answer, we have to decide if you're having an emergency.
You just have to decide.
We decide.
That's a really tough judgment.
That's
call to
food for
make a lot of
thought for the
time.
audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you ever call 911 by accident, your pocket does it, stay on the line. Just tell them, sorry, it was an accident. Or if we call you back, pick it up. Sorry, it was an accident. Because, I mean, you know.
How are you supposed to make that decision with nothing?
Exactly. And so, and we have certain programs to help kind of find where you are, but without having, you know, we have to call your service provider to
Mhm.
ping your phone, and that's through, a deputy has to, you know, so there's a lot of
Right.
process to go through that to find exactly where you are. A lot of people think we should know where they are at all times. Well, there's a lot of privacy issues that people, when you sign up for your cell phone and all that, you don't,
Mhm.
a lot of the public doesn't want all their information out there.
But yeah, I
So-
don't.
Right.
I get it.
So
Yeah.
we have software that can help kind of find where you are close. So if you're having an emergency,
You have a general proximity.
right. So if you have an open phone line and I'm listening and I hear screaming, but it's your TV,
Right.
exactly.
You got to send somebody.
Of course.
Right. And you're only
And it's
human.
just a
You can't be faulted
triangulated-
for
So
that.
they tell
area.
us if your gut feels like something's, you send. So we'll send. I mean, a lot of times if you ever call from a landline, we'll
Mhm.
always send
Why?
because we know where you are.
Oh.
If it's a
Interesting.
landline, we have your address.
If you have a
Right.
guaranteed location,
We
yeah,
have
you
a
might as
guaranteed
well.
location.
Mhm.
So again, policies are different depending on where you are.
Interesting.
You
But-
still get calls from landlines?
All the time. I actually like it
2020.
because I know exactly where you are.
That's cool.
So especially, you know, if someone's screaming because something's happening, if I have a landline, I'm like, well, at least I can just send everything
So you're
and figure it
ever,
out after.
if you're ever in an emergency at home and
Open
you
a
happen to
landline.
still have a landline, use that one to
Right.
call
Well, I
911
mean,
if you
sometimes
can.
people are, you know, are frozen. Things happen. You don't know what to say. You're screaming. I get it. So if we know where you are, we'll send everything.
Mhm.
All medics, fire, police, they all go.
Now,
You know?
when you guys ring back, does that show up on my cell phone hypothetically as 911?
Again, it depends on the department.
Mhm.
It might show up as I don't actually know it from our phone.
Mhm.
I think it depends on what you have
Right.
because I've heard different things. But yeah, if you ever by accident pocket dial, even call us back and say, hey, I just called, was an accident, didn't mean to. It's just because people don't know that, right? They
Right.
don't know that that's what happens. They go,
Right.
"Whoa."
You think you're going to be in trouble.
And we appreciate it. I love it when people answer their pocket dials because, although that's
Makes your job
not
easier.
someone calling me telling me they're having a heart attack, for me, those calls are one of the hardest for me because I have to make that choice.
That's peace of mind for you.
Exactly.
Definitely.
So it's so those are little things that people don't know about dispatch that I wish were as popular as the Got Milk commercials,
Mhm.
Right.
that kind of thing. Or when you call us, try to figure out where you are if you can, right? Because when you call us, the first thing we're going to ask you is what's your address or where are you? Because we can't send anything if we don't know where you are. Right? So a lot of times they'll ask them like, hey, look for a piece of mail if you're somewhere where you don't look around, see the closest cross street. Something that can identify where you are. That's a big thing too. So they do outreach programs to like elementary schools and stuff when they're open. And that's what they tell, make sure you know your address, things like that. Because that's really important too. Everyone's like, well, can't you see where I am? Don't you know my phone number? Not always.
So, to sum it all up, the entire police department does a lot more behind the scenes than we know of and what we see in real life.
Well, and even dispatchers a lot of times will, like, if you're trying to find someone or figure out, we'll, like, take to social media to try to find somebody or figure out, okay, maybe if we go through their, like, find their Facebook, we can find... There's a lot of investigation that goes into it, and it's pretty incredible to watch. Some of my coworkers, I'm like, dang, I would have never thought of that, and they stop a bad guy because they, through all this stuff, figured it out. It's pretty cool.
And that's something you as a regular person don't really think about. I mean,
Right.
I've never been in law enforcement. I've never been a dispatcher. I didn't know half of the stuff you just told me right now,
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you guys, either of you can answer this question, how do you guys think we can get that message out to the general public who just thinks police are bad? They follow that ACAB motto and don't realize how much they actually do care for the community and how much is going on. Do you think there's a way we can actually spread that message instead of just picking a side and fighting?
I'm going to echo something I said in episode 1 of our podcast, Callback. But willful ignorance is one of the things that bothers me the most in this world.
Yeah, buddy.
So I feel like a lot of people need to educate themselves on topics before they speak on them. I'm definitely guilty of speaking on things that I'm ignorant of sometimes. And I've been trying to do a better job of that. We're all human. But I think, especially when you question somebody's individual ethics and morals, when those get called into question, you should probably understand the policies and their situation before you actually question them. In addition, blindly vowing your allegiance to a set of beliefs is ignorant. You should probably educate yourselves just based on that.
So I've been trying to be a little more quiet on social media. I've been kind of watching, and I've noticed one common thing is that people from one side of things are calling the others willfully ignorant and vice versa. So there is a giant divide right now where people are so caught up in their beliefs based on whatever they're hearing or seeing every day that they actually believe the other people are willfully ignorant. That makes me sit back and evaluate, okay, because I believe a lot of people are willfully ignorant.
Absolutely.
And
I think it's people on both sides of the political spectrum.
but a lot of those people would turn around and call me the same thing.
Sure.
How the hell do we clarify that?
I think, especially because data can be cherry-picked these days, it's really hard to get the straight truth. And I think that if there ever was an opportunity for the straight truth to be all we could see, people wouldn't want it. Because it's inconvenient. People have to face these issues, these truths.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for a lot of people to swallow their pride and say they're wrong.
I have a theory. So a lot of times I say trust a professional, right? I go get my hair cut. I'm going to trust my hairstylist. If she's like, I think this will work, this probably wouldn't. She does this for a living. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, I actually think we should do this. Well, I mean, you have an idea of what you want, but when it comes down to the skill and everything, you're not a hairstylist, right? So trust professional. Go talk to your local law enforcement. Go do a ride-along.
Yeah.
Go talk to a dispatcher. Go see what they do. I mean, again, I went on a ride-along with the deputy. We responded to a person who was under the influence who went and stole items out of a grocery store and pushed the clerk. So we responded. He ended up at a bus stop and was covered in milk and had lit like a fire over a trash can, and there was trash everywhere. These deputies kept their composure, were extremely nice to this man. They did have to press charge. The store wanted to press charges, so they did have to arrest him. So they arrested him, but guess who cleaned up all of those items? The deputies. And so people you don't think about that either, right? So they're dealing with these people. They're so nice to them. In my experience, they were so nice to him. And they cleaned up all of this garbage and stuff that was gross, because they take pride in their community. That was their job, and so they don't necessarily want to do these things, right? They don't want to arrest people. They don't take pride in arresting people, but they want to keep their community safe.
Right.
They have big hearts. They want everyone to be safe, so they run into the gunfire, right? We get calls. Somebody with a knife, somebody with a gun, somebody with a machete, which we get really often, which is kind of weird. Yeah. But they run into those calls.
We've both seen deputies run into fire.
Exactly.
Firsthand.
Yeah.
So of course we might have a little extra love for that kind of thing. But I think you make a really good point, because before you started speaking, I was about to say, hey guys, sorry, I think we brought up a question we probably can't answer right now to try to, spread awareness. But I think we're going to plug episode 2 as well. We touched on, it was for mental health, and we touched on maybe expanding your activities, if you will, for lack of a better word. Go do something that you're afraid to do. Go do something that scares you, right? Yeah. So especially for those of you out there who might be a little jaded towards the law enforcement,
right?
I would encourage you to do that. Call your local police department or sheriff's department and request a ride-along. Because they will take you on one, and you can see the day-to-day how they actually operate. Maybe we can spread the message that way.
So kind of what you guys are saying, to echo the age-old adage, is basically before you judge somebody, walk a mile in their shoes.
Exactly, and get the information from the source.
And even then, if you do a ride-along, you won't really be walking a mile in their shoes. You don't have to respond to those issues. You're sitting in the car while they do.
You get to observe, though.
And the first thing they tell me is, all right, if I, stay in the car, be safe, I'll tell you when you can come out, kind of thing, because your safety is their priority. The public safety, right? So it's a dispatcher. Our priority is our officer safety.
Right.
But their priority is your safety. Of course, in their own. But I think that's important to talk to these people. I mean, when it comes to all the COVID information, I'm getting my information from my friend who's an ER nurse and our friends who are firemen and paramedics. And so you want to get your information from the source, I think.
Yeah. And social media is making that very hard to do.
It's polarizing.
I really want to go on a ride along. I'm definitely gonna try
and schedule one.
I got to meet some of the deputies she works with, and they seem like really awesome dudes.
Right on.
It's just cool to see what they do. It's cool to see how much they deal with, and I think it's definitely been eye opening, this job, and these dispatchers have all my respect.
Now, with coronavirus being a thing as it is right now, how hard is it to schedule a ride-along?
That may have to wait until after COVID. I'm not totally sure how the ride-alongs are with public.
Probably dependent on each department.
I'm not really sure.
In California, your odds are probably slim.
Yeah.
But do some research. Yeah. Educate.
Yeah.
And
be nice.
We're all guilty of being
to
ignorant.
Your law enforcement right now. They're dealing with a lot with all this stuff going on. First, all the political stuff. So they already got a lot of hate that way. And then now with COVID, it's even...
Right, it's ramped up.
Compounded.
Exactly, so...
Yeah, I think we're all ready for life to get back to normal. And what is normal anymore? We're getting.
If I hear the term new normal again, I'm gonna punch somebody's teeth out. I swear to God.
Check on your friends. Always check on your friends right now.
Yeah, a lot of people's mental health is suffering. Again, you guys, to our listeners, we always like to extend this invitation. Reach out to us. Maybe not Christina, but Zach and I.
Why not Christina?
If she wants to. I just don't want to sign her up. I don't want to sign her up for anything that she didn't volunteer for.
She's a great human.
Okay, then reach out to all of us, you guys.
Yeah.
We're here for our listeners. We care about you guys. If your mental health is suffering, we want to be there for you.
You know, one of my favorite things to do when I'm feeling down about life?
What's that?
Help somebody else.
Yeah, me too.
Because then I just feel like a good person.
Yeah. Makes life a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. So no corn pops in your department, huh? No bad dudes?
We're taking a look at Zach's
Shameless
shirt.
plug,
if you guys
Kale
will.
Rivers. Thank you for the shirt.
Thank you, Kale. Cool guy.
Appreciate
I'm
it.
waiting for mine in the mail, but that's
Yeah,
cool.
Kale. What the hell, man?
Come on, dude.
He even requested I wear it on the episode.
Well, you did.
Right. Maybe we should have had two of them.
Maybe we should have, Kale. And with that, we'll close the episode.
What episode is
drink.
this? 6?
This is 7.
Is it?
Okay.
It's been a while since we filmed an episode.
If this is
Kinda my
episode
fault.
6, you want to bet it's episode 6, and I'll bet it's episode 7?
What are we betting on?
What would you like to wager, sir?
Ooh.
One guy.
Why
kicks
don't we
the
let
other
our
guy
audience
steady.
decide?
Audience,
Oh, no.
you decide. What
Okay,
we're
within
wagering.
reason though. We get to
Please.
say yes or no.
I'm
We
dialing
have
it
to
in.
agree to it.
We have to agree to it, but I'm saying this is episode 7. Zach, you said this is episode 6, right?
Yep.
I also promise you, if the wagerers shave the beard, it won't happen.
Well, we
Shaved
have
on
to
it?
agree. We
Shaved
have to
on it?
agree
It
to
won't
our.
happen.
Shake that we're wagering. What we wager, you guys, will be decided upon by you guys, but we have to agree to it.
Mutually.
Okay?
Ooh.
Okay.
Mutually agree.
Also, I want to plug one more thing in.
Plug it.
If we're going to reallocate funds for the police department, I vote that all police officers should drive Rams in the future.
I would also like to inject that
Protecting your
our Second
community
Amendment
since
right is
2020.
to own hand grenades. So, have a great night, you guys.
All right, this has been Burban Vikings episode. Val just confirmed 7. So, y'all tell me what I got to do.
Great.
Good night, guys.